In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NFL games happening on October 15, 2023, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 2 picks for each game, 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NFL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. San Francisco 49ers versus Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns play host to the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday afternoon in an American Football Conference versus National Football Conference showdown from Cleveland Browns Stadium. The 49ers come in looking like one of football's best teams, sitting at 5-0. For the Browns, at 2-2, they know they need to find a way to spring the upset and get to over .500 in what expects to be a tight American Football Conference North race. These two last squared off in 2019, with the 49ers coming away with a 28-point win as they look to replicate that performance in this one. Being at home though, Cleveland will be sure to make this a challenge for the visiting opposition. The San Francisco 49ers come into this one looking to stay unbeaten after a 42-10 win over the Dallas Cowboys in primetime last time out. Brock Purdy has thrown for 1,271 yards and 9 touchdowns on 72.1% passing, while Christian McCaffrey has a team-high 510 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk has a team-high 21 receptions for 378 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Deebo Samuel has 302 receiving yards and George Kittle has 215 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns this season. On defense, Fred Warner has a team-high 41 total tackles and a pair of sacks, while Javon Hargrave and Drake Jackson each have a team-high 3 sacks. Talanoa Hufanga has a pair of interceptions as well for San Fran this season. The Cleveland Browns had their bye in Week 5, but prior to the bye, the Browns fell to 2-2 with a 28-3 loss to Baltimore last time out. Deshaun Watson has thrown for 678 yards, 4 touchdowns and 2 picks on 63.7% passing, while Dorian Thompson-Robinson has thrown for 121 yards and 3 interceptions on 52.8% passing. Jerome Ford leads the Browns on the ground with 186 rushing yards, while Amari Cooper has a team-high 259 receiving yards. Grant Delpit and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah each have a team-high 21 total tackles, while Myles Garrett has a team-high 5.5 sacks this season. It's difficult to create any case that stands up against the San Francisco 49ers right now. Fresh off a massive win on Sunday Night Football in front of a national audience, the 49ers dominated their playoff rival. The Cowboys came into that game as a team that many considered a Super Bowl contender, including yours truly. Now, after pounding Dallas 42-10 at home, every radio host and media personality is shouting from the rooftops about the Niners, declaring how they're worlds apart from the Cowboys and maybe any team in the NFL. The 49ers have dominated opponents throughout the season, and that will continue into this one. Even though they'll be on the road for this one, it won't change their ability to dominate on both ends. The 49ers have one of the league's most explosive offenses, coupled with a defense filled with talent and versatility. For the Browns, the defense is strong, but injuries is what will hold them back in this one. Watson is an elite quarterback, and the offense will struggle even more than usual in his absence, much like what happened in the previous game he missed. On the defensive side, they could be without Garrett, which would significantly alter this one as well. There are too many question marks to believe in Cleveland in this one, especially against one of the league's best teams. It may be the square play here, but I have to stick with the 49ers until they give me a reason not to. San Francisco's been the best team in the NFL, and while Cleveland's defense has been solid, it couldn't slow down the Ravens, and the 49ers are just a better team across the board. There's also no telling if Deshaun Watson is fully healthy, and if he can't go, imagine Dorian Thompson-Robinson against this 49ers defense. Yikes. The 49ers will dominate from start to finish and come away with another easy victory in this one. So the San Francisco 49ers to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. San Francisco is coming off an important win on a grand stage, dominating a defense that many consider to be the best in the NFL. Naturally, while the Browns have impressed on defense through 5 weeks, many analysts will still expect the Niners to explode the very same way this Sunday at Cleveland. We do not. The 49ers are, like all NFL teams, composed of human beings. Those humans have been through a raucous week, establishing their dominance on national TV Sunday night in the National Football Conference. Purdy and McCaffrey have been impeccable, but everything about their Week 6 environment is rough. This is a long road trip, and it's sandwiched between another uncomfortable road game in Minnesota next week. Sheesh. Cleveland weather will be in the mid-50s, rainy, and winds will gust up to 20 miles per hour. These are not ideal throwing conditions. The Browns have had 2 weeks to prepare defensively, and they're the best defense at limiting explosive plays. They're first in opponent third down conversion percentage and own a litany of top 5 defensive marks. They're also one of the least explosive offenses in the NFL, and Deshaun Watson might sit out. The Browns and 49ers have been 2 of the stingiest defenses in the NFL through the early portion of the year. Cleveland has the best third down defense and is allowing the fewest passing yards per game. San Francisco is allowing the fewest points per game while giving up a measly 64.2 rushing yards per contest. I expect an ugly game with both clubs struggling to effectively move the ball. Christian McCaffrey had 19 carries and a touchdown but only had 51 yards last week. Expect him to get a similar amount of carries, but it will be tough to gain footing against Cleveland. San Francisco will have no problem finding success in this one, and considering the Browns are likely to be without their quarterback, their offense will struggle to move the ball. The 49ers have one of the league's best defenses, and against a backup and inexperienced quarterback, will feast in this one. Beyond that, San Francisco will be content to run the ball and slow this game down, especially with it being on the road. Adding in the blowout nature of this one, and it seems destined to be one of the lower scoring games of the weekend. The Browns do have an elite pass defense, which should limit San Francisco's big play ability. The total number has gone under in 6 of Cleveland's last 7 games facing National Football Conference clubs. This will be a gritty, dirty defensive battle, and we're here for it. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. Seattle Seahawks versus Cincinnati Bengals. The Seattle Seahawks travel to Cincinnati on Sunday to take on the Bengals in an interconference showdown. The Seahawks are coming off a bye week and come into this matchup at 3-1, trailing only the red-hot 49ers in the National Football Conference West Division. The Bengals are just 2-3 on the season but are coming off arguably their most impressive performance in a road win over the Arizona Cardinals this past Sunday. The Seahawks opened up the year with a pretty rough loss to the Rams 30-13. But they've won 3 straight since then. First came a 37-31 overtime victory versus a pesky Lions team. Then a 37-27 affair versus the Panthers. Back on October 2nd in their most recent appearance, the Seahawks beat the Giants 24-3 on a Monday evening. In the New York matchup, the Seahawks were able to put up points in every quarter and kept the Giants in check along the way. Seattle's Geno Smith threw for 110 yards and a score on 1-3 of 2-0 passing, and Kenneth Walker led the rush on 79 yards and a score off 17 carries. Noah Fant was the leading receiver on 2 catches for 63 yards. Over on the Bengals side, they went just 1-3 in their first 4 games. The opener was a 24-3 blowout loss to the Browns, then came a 27-24 loss to the Ravens. In Week 3, Cincinnati got their first win of the year 19-16 over the Rams, but then fell again 27-3 versus the Titans to kick off October. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow went 2-0 of 3-0 for 165 yards in the defeat. In last weekend's matchup versus the Cardinals, the Bengals put up points in each quarter on the way to a 34-20 win. Burrow bagged 317 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception this time. Joe Mixon added 81 rushing yards off 25 carries, and Jammer Chase dazzled on 192 yards, 3 touchdowns and 15 receptions. This is one of the games of the week. The improving Bengals come into this matchup after picking up a much-needed win against the Arizona Cardinals last week. Quarterback Joe Burrow finally looked good after struggling in the early weeks of the season following a preseason calf injury. The Seahawks had their bye last week but now have to travel east for this game. The Bengals won their last home game against the Rams, and the home crowd should be in better spirits now after last week's win. Wide receiver Jammer Chase had a huge game against the Cardinals with 15 receptions for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. touchdowns, and the Bengals offense needed to step up their game as their defense has been shaky. The Seahawks offense has been good enough for them to make a 3-1 start, and they are 2-0 on the road after beating a very good Detroit team and a very bad New York Giants team. The Bengals offensive line is going to need to hold up as the Seahawks had 11 sacks against the Giants. The Bengals have won 2 games this year, and the key to that has been their commitment to the run despite major success and a commitment to get the ball to Chase. In the 2 wins, Chase has 27 catches for 333 yards and 3 scores. As it turns out, Chase was correct in suggesting that he is always open. More likely, however, is that the Bengals' commitment to run the ball has kept the defense honest, and Burrow's added mobility against Arizona allowed Chase to work his way open. The Seahawks can expect a heavy dose of running back Joe Mixon in this game to help set up the Bengals' passing attack. In their 2 wins, Mixon has had his 2 highest rushing attempts of the season with 19 against the Rams and a season-high 25 against the Cardinals. This will open the door for Burrow to exploit the league's 30th pass defense with a large number of those targets going to Chase. The Bengals may also get back T. Higgins this week to give Burrow another top target to work with. On the other side of the ball, the Bengals will get an opportunity to pin their ears back against Smith and the Seahawks' passing attack. The Bengals are 9th against the pass this season and have the 8th best sack percentage in the NFL. Joe Burrow looked like himself last week against the Arizona Cardinals, throwing 3 touchdowns in a 34-20 road win. Ja'Marr Chase caught all 3 touchdowns, finishing with a season-high 192 yards receiving, after clamoring to the media about how open he always is. He will get open again, and often again a Seattle Seahawks club giving up 280 passing yards per game, 30th in the league. To make matters worse, the Seahawks cannot get off the field on 3rd down, 2nd last in the NFL. Even if T. Higgins does not suit up again, the Bengals will carve up a young Seattle secondary. They are 2-3 entering this game and feel better than their record, and they will show up at home against a Seahawks team traveling across the country. Although they are coming off a bye, it is always difficult for West Coast clubs playing in the Eastern time zone. The home team should be able to win this one, as the layoff could hurt the Seahawks, and Cincinnati has made a habit of picking up at this time of year after making slow starts. Take full advantage of this cupcake line and load up on a Bengals team that could be ready to take off. So the Cincinnati Bengals to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. I'm not sold on these defenses, and both teams have a lot of offensive firepower. The Giants could have scored many more than 3 points against the Seahawks last week, but mistakes by quarterback Daniel Jones cost them. The Bengals should be much better equipped to put points on the board against them. If they jump out into a lead, the Seahawks are capable of firing back. Seattle quarterback Geno Smith makes smart decisions, and he can look for some very good receivers along with a strong running game. The Bengals need another big game from Ja'Marr Chase, and they could also be boosted by the return of T. Higgins, who missed the win over the Cardinals due to a rib injury. The Bengals' offense looked very much like themselves last week in Arizona with Burrow's improved mobility and ability to extend plays. Geno Smith and the Seahawks' passing attack has been playing at a high level since struggling out of the gate this season. Smith is completing 70% of his passes over his last 3 games and will likely be putting the ball in the air quite a bit here to keep up with the Bengals. The Seahawks' offense has scored 27 or more points in each of the last 3 games. As for the Bengals, they are coming off a 34-point effort and should thrive throwing the ball against the Seahawks' 30th ranked pass defense. The Bengals and Seahawks are off to a troubling start on the defensive side of the ball. Cincinnati has been gouged on the ground, giving up the 2nd most rushing yards in the NFL. Kenneth Walker will have a good game, and the Seahawks will score some points here. Joe Burrow looks back to normal, and the Seahawks cannot get off the field on 3rd down. Seattle has been stingy on the ground, but the Bengals will not utilize Joe Mixon much in this one, throwing the majority of the game. He carried a whopping 25 times last week against Arizona, but only finished with 81 yards. Burrow dropped back 46 times, so his calf looks good, and expect the same output here. The 2 teams are a combined 4-5 to the over this season, but I think this game screams high scoring. This game could fly over the current total, as there will be a lot of points produced here, and it'll likely be a shootout. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. New Orleans Saints versus Houston Texans. The New Orleans Saints are out on the road for the 2nd consecutive week this week, as they travel to Texas to face the Houston Texans and rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. This is already the 2nd time this season the Saints have played consecutive road games, as a 20-17 win at Carolina was followed by an 18-17 loss at Green Bay during the final 2 weeks of September. The last 2 games for New Orleans haven't been nearly as close, as a 26-9 home loss to Tampa was followed by a 34-0 win at New England last week. The The win in New England was actually the first against the spread victory of the season for New Orleans as well, and the entire team has to be feeling pretty confident after both sides of the ball played exceptionally well. New Orleans is hoping that kind of play carries over to this week in Houston, but winning consecutive road games in consecutive weeks, both straight up and against the number, is extremely hard to do in this league. Can the Saints get it done this time around? The New Orleans Saints look for their third road win to improve to 4-2 on the year. The Saints have won 4 of their last 5 road games. Derek Carr is completing 65.3% of his passes for 946 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas have combined for 602 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, while Rashid Shaheed has 14 receptions. The New Orleans Saints ground game is averaging 97.2 yards per contest, and Alvin Kamara leads the way with 131 yards and 1 touchdown. Defensively, New Orleans is allowing 15 points and 274.6 yards per game. Pete Werner leads the New Orleans Saints with 37 tackles. Carl Granderson has 3.5 sacks, and Marshawn Lattimore has 1 interception. The Houston Texans look for their second home win to get to a .500 record. The Texans have lost 8 of their last 9 home games. C.J. Stroud is completing 61.3% of his passes for 1,461 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Nico Collins and Tank Dell have combined for 791 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, while Robert Woods has 21 receptions. The Houston Texans ground game is averaging 82.6 yards per contest, and Dameon Pierce leads the way with 247 yards and 1 touchdown. Defensively, Houston is allowing 20 points and 338.8 yards per game. Henry To'o leads the Houston Texans with 39 tackles. Jonathan Greenard has 3 sacks, and Steven Nelson has 2 interceptions. We have an interesting matchup on Sunday between the Texans and the Saints in Houston. The Texans are coming off a heartbreaking loss against the Falcons, in which they lost on a game-winning field goal in the dying seconds. Not much was expected this season from the Texans, but rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud has been showing up and playing like a vet. His most impressive stat this season is that he has thrown 7 touchdowns and no interceptions. He takes very good care of the football, and that is something we don't typically see from rookie quarterbacks. And it isn't like he isn't throwing it much either, as the Texans' offense ranks second in the league in most passing yards per game. He will need to bring his A game this Sunday, as the Saints have one of the best defenses in the NFL and allow just 15 points per game. New Orleans just shut out the Patriots, but I like Stroud's chances of breaking down this Saints pass defense. Fresh from their 34-0 blowout win over the Patriots, I can see the Saints coming into this one a little sluggish. Teams who are coming off a huge blowout win the week before have been known to underperform in their next game. This Saints team is built to win low-scoring games and relies on its defense to keep them in most games. They only average 19 points per game, and that will not fly this week in Houston. I do believe Houston will find some offensive success here, as this is the second of 4 straight against non-conference opponents for New Orleans, and sometimes it's those non-conference games see defenses get a little lazy because there just isn't the same familiarity there is with division conference rivals. At the same time, NFL teams in their second consecutive road game this year are just 7-10 against the spread, with just 3 of those 7 occurrences being where the team was able to cover both games during the stretch. The Saints are aiming to become the 4th here, and even with the defense they've got, I still don't know how you can trust the offense to pull their own weight in a situational spot that's been bad for the entire league. At least not enough to want to lay points on the road with them. After they put up 30 points as a team for the first time since last October, Houston's put up at least 20 points in both home games so far, and if they didn't settle for so many field goals last week to land on 19 points, it would have been 4 straight games of at least 20 points for C.J. Stroud and company. That point total of 20 has basically been the Saints' ceiling for the past calendar year. The Saints are the more talented team and should win his game if they're serious about making the playoffs. However, the Saints' offense has been a bit underwhelming, and that starts at quarterback, where they're 24th in passing offense. There's also a chance the Saints are fat and happy after smoking the Patriots' boots last week. The Texans have quietly been better than expected, and their loss last week to the Falcons on the road came down to the final seconds. C.K. Stroud looks sharp at quarterback, and the Texans are averaging 29 points in their last 3 games. I expect the Texans to score on them early and force them to play a different style of game than they are used to. So the Houston Texans money line is our full game side pick. I know the Saints have one of the best defenses in the league and don't give up many points, but Houston should be able to give them a problem with their offense. C.J. Stroud is not playing playing like a rookie right now, and I believe he has what it takes to pick apart the Saints' pass defense. He has been spreading the ball nicely among all his receivers and is on pace to be Rookie of the Year. Look for Houston's offense to have a big game. As for the Saints, they also have their fair share of playmakers on offense. New Orleans got star running back Alvin Kamara back from suspension, and he is one of the most explosive running backs in the league. Also, let's not forget about Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and even the emergence of Rashid Shaheed. All streaks eventually have to end, and considering that so many recreational bettors out there love to ride streaks and have been all about these unders in Saints games, the early week jump in the total tells you a lot about what bigger bettors and more non-recreational bettors think about blindly riding streaks. All things eventually come to an end, and considering each New Orleans opponent had put up more points each week on the Saints before the debacle that is the Patriots' offense showed up last week, it's possible the Saints' defense isn't nearly what it's cracked up to be. So I expect Houston to be somewhere in the 20s when all is said and done, and if the Saints want to prove to me that they are actually worthy of being a road favorite in this spot, then they'll find a way to get even more than 20 points. Although trusting the Saints' offense to score is tough, if trusting Houston to hit about 20 points is much easier to do, I still can only look at going over this total as well. Not the best move considering it's already moved up from its opener of 40.5, and betting into a worse number is never fun. But if Houston gets to 20 as I suspect, and they lose, the over is likely cashing. This total feels a little too low to me as I'm expecting us to see plenty of offense and touchdowns scored. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.